Greenland's politicians have condemned plans for high-profile US visits in the wake of President Trump's threats to take over the island. Second Lady Vance will make a cultural trip later this week, and a separate visit is expected from Mike Waltz, the embattled national security advisor to Donald Trump. Well, speaking to the newspaper Siak, outgoing Greenlandic Prime Minister Mutta Agedi said the only purpose of the visits is to show a demonstration of power to the US. Speaking earlier, the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen criticised the US in connection to the visit, calling it an unacceptable pressure being placed on Greenland and Denmark. She also rejected that it's a private visit, as the Americans have otherwise claimed.
You cannot arrange a private visit with official representatives from another country. A visit to Greenland, where the acting Greenlandic government has very clearly stated they do not want to visit right now because there is no government, so such official meetings cannot be held. I have said several times since January 7th that I and we take this situation very seriously. President Trump is serious and he is earnest. He wants Greenland.
Well, earlier I spoke to Danish journalist Martin Salsø Sorensen, who told me how people in Greenland are feeling right now.
People here are looking at it with a mixture of anger and suspicion, because the Americans generally are most welcome to come here as tourists or as investors. But in this particular case, they are coming without an invitation, without an official host. And it comes, of course, on the backdrop of these very sinister comments coming from the White House in recent months about a possible takeover by America of Greenland, about the use of force, military force, about annexation. So people are very wary about this visit coming up this week.
Vance has said, she's very interested in the cultural links and ties and the history. What is the situation on the ground if it isn't a formal invite? How do these trips get managed?
Well, as far as we know, they've been invited by the organization who runs this dog sled race that will take place on Saturday, and where Vance will be a participant. But there's no formal organization here. We know some individuals from Greenland have reached out to people around President Trump, perhaps in the administration as well. And Americans themselves are organizing this visit, and very little is known about the actual program, who they're going to see, where they're going to visit, except for this dog sled race. And as far as we know, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz will be in Pitufik Air Base, also known as Thule Air Base, up in the far north.
Are you anticipating any sort of form of public protest? I mean, are people getting seriously worried about the American view on this?
They are very worried, but the Greenlanders are also very, I would say, very quiet people. So what we have heard is that up in Sisimiut, where the dog sled race will take place on Saturday, people are planning a silent protest where they say they will stand along the route where she will travel, and they will turn their backs quietly to her to signal to the Americans that they don't like their ambitions for Greenland.
And just very briefly, we know that in recent polls, almost 80% of Greenlanders have backed independence from Denmark, but even more of them don't want to become part of the United States. I mean, realistically, what power do people there have if Trump pushes this agenda?
Well, Greenland doesn't have a defense of its own, and Denmark has a very small defense here. The thing is, Greenland, being a part of Denmark, is also part of NATO. So America is the great ally that should be part of the protection of Greenland. So that adds to the oddity of this situation, that the country that should be part of the defense now seems to be on the attack.